Let me introduce to you Deborah Morrill. She is the executive director of Milloway House, and she's one of our graduates from Ivy Tech. She did not tell me what date that what year she graduated, but she's one of ours. She is the executive director at Milloway House for 9 years, and that's her current position as a community service coordinator. And she has, in 1994, she was the emerging leader for Monroe County, the city of Bloomington, Monroe County. So I'm going to have Deborah come up here and talk for about 10 minutes or so, and she's going to tell you her story. Deborah.
So thank you. It's an honor to be here, standing in front of all of you. Honestly, I didn't include the date that I graduated from Ivy Tech because I don't really remember. It's probably about 14, maybe 13 years ago. I've been the director at Milloway House. I'm working on my 3rd year, but I have been with Milloway House for 9 years. Coming back here and speaking to folks here is really important to me. It's an honor. And I want to start out by sharing with you a little bit about where I was 16 years ago. I have a paper here that 16 years ago, I'm probably too close to this. 16 years ago, on a Saturday, I was sitting on my kitchen floor. It was a Saturday morning that started after my abuser had been drinking all Friday night. And while he was yelling at me, something made me get a piece of paper off the counter and start writing down the things that were said to me, because I truly believed these were the things that were wrong with me. And I thought that if I could fix them, I would be okay. So I want to share with you a few of these things. I don't have a right to breathe. I should die. I'm crazy. I make people hate me. I make people hit me. I make people drink. Why don't I realize no one wants me? Why don't I just leave? I'm a bitch. I have a big mouth. I would like to kill you. I'd like to choke you. Everyone would be better if I was dead. These were the things that I heard all the time. Besides the emotional abuse, there was physical abuse. And probably I would have to say the cycle of abuse in my life started much earlier. It started out with childhood sexual abuse by a member of the clergy, which impacted my life in so many ways. I wasn't given the support and help like kids deserve when they experience that. And it defined a lot of things about me. But I always was a person that eventually tried to find the good in every bad situation. And when I was a single mom at 16, working 2 jobs, walking to work to save money on a bus because I didn't have a car, I remember one time going to Kroger's, and I didn't have enough money for anything other than the baby food I needed to get. I didn't know about a lot of the social services. And I remember walking home from Kroger's after work with my measly bag of groceries, being so angry at myself. Because when I was in Kroger, I saw a pound of hamburger that I really wanted. I knew food-wise for myself, all I had at home was some oatmeal in the cabinet, and I wanted hamburgers so bad. But I couldn't bring myself to steal it, and I was so angry at myself because I thought, everybody else can walk around and steal things. I'm hungry, and I want this, and I couldn't even steal it. Looking back, I know where that came from, my fear of doing anything wrong. And that came from the fact that I was sexually abused by a priest, and it made me think I was going to hell anyway, so I was afraid to put anything more on that list of bad things that I did. And because of that, felt like I deserved to be punished, which led me into abusive relationships. In all honesty, never had I had a healthy relationship up until the point of this. I ended up eventually being able to get out of that relationship when the neighbors called the police one day after my stepdaughter ran over there. And the police officer, it was actually a sheriff, told me about Middleway House, and I knew Middleway House existed. But I always thought I didn't deserve help because I was all of these things on this piece of paper. But I thought when that sheriff told me that, I thought, well, he made a mistake. He looked at me as if I did deserve help. And I thought to myself, well, if he's made that mistake, maybe they'll make that mistake at Middleway House too and realize that I deserve help. So I did finally go there and went to their support groups and got as much help as I could get and ended up moving into the transitional housing program, which was where I started Ivy Tech. I remember the day that I enrolled at Ivy Tech. I enrolled in the criminal justice program, and I'll go back a little bit. My passion for working with people in the criminal justice system, I do a support group in there, and before I worked at Middleway House, I worked with people as they were exiting jail with a program. And my passion for that comes from the fact that I know that there is such a fine line between people who commit crimes and people that don't. From me with that hamburger, because I know that day if I would have stole that pound of hamburger, probably the next time I needed something I would have stole too, and eventually I would have ended up caught. So I'm a firm believer that people make the best choices that they can in any given moment with the information and experiences that they've had. But like I said, I remember the day that I enrolled in Ivy Tech, and I was actually sitting there crying as I was enrolling because I was so sure that they were going to look at me and say, you are too stupid to come to school. I was just waiting for that person to look at me and say that, and they didn't. And I enrolled and tried my hardest. I wanted to prove to everybody that I deserved help. I remember when I lived at the transitional housing program taking this paper and giving it to my advocate because these were the things that I needed to work on. And she told me, she said, fold that up and put that away. She said, I want you to know that's not who you are. And now I keep it as a reminder of my strength. And I'm so proud of all the opportunities that I've been given by a community full of people that help. With Middleway House, the people who help my kids overcome the trauma they experienced, the continual support that I got. And like I said, before I worked here, I worked with individuals who were incarcerated, and being able to make that connection to them, to Middleway House, was huge. So when I was offered a job or offered to interview for a job at Middleway House, for me, it was going so full circle. So if I could ask you to leave here with just one thing, know that Middleway House will help anyone. We serve men, we serve women. We offer whatever services an individual needs: emergency shelter, transitional housing, legal advocacy. We're there for survivors. I left a bunch of our cards up there on the table, so I'd ask you to take one and keep it with you. And secondly, I would like you to never have doubt in people. Never have doubt in their resiliency. No matter what they look like the first moment you see them, understand that there is something in them. And if you give them the support and the kindness that they need, they'll be their best that they can be. And just love one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow, for telling your story. That's not an easy task to do for things that you've gone through, and especially doing it publicly. And we thank you. Our next speaker is Melissa Stone. Melissa is a graduate, has a undergraduate degree in psychology at IU Bloomington in 2007, and she completed her master's of social work at the University of Southern Indiana in 2014. Melissa is a licensed social worker since 2014. She's just a baby, guys. So her background includes case management, individual and group therapy working with adults with severe mental health issues. And she's also in the correctional setting. Melissa is previously worked at IU Bloomington as a confidential victim advocate, helping students who experience sexual violence through reporting process and the campus community resource. She is now a social worker for the City of Bloomington's Police Department. Melissa, thank you.
Hello, is this okay? Can you all hear me? I used to work at Ivy Tech way back in the, not way back, it's not been that long, but I see a lot of people here that I know, so it feels interesting to be up here right now. Again, my name is Melissa. We can start my story also back when I was a child. I wasn't a victim of abuse, however, I spent a lot of years of my life watching my parents fight, to the point where things were broken in my house, things were thrown in my house, and I spent a lot of time hiding under my bed. I have a twin, so we would like hide under our bed. We would run out and go to the neighbor's house. So we spent a lot of time running away from a bad situation. And my mom was from Oklahoma, so she didn't know anybody here in Indiana. It took a long time. I think we were probably 11 or 12 by the time our parents got divorced. And I know we want people to get out of those situations, but I can tell you the only time I ever saw my mom cry was the day that my parents got divorced, and she's like, what am I gonna do? Like, it's good, right? But it's not, and I can't say it was easy at all for the rest of her life, right? We moved around a lot. We had to do a lot of things at that point. So just breaking from a relationship isn't always all that you need, right? You need support and you need those services. And I'm from this little rural town in Indiana, and you just don't have all of those types of resources. So we spent a lot of time working on mending, years of fear and years of being afraid of what was happening next. And I'm still a person that gets really jumpy. I don't like people behind me. Loud noises freak me out, right? I have a lot of those things that I'm still working through, but it is possible to work through that stuff. It just takes it's a long road, and I just wanted to make sure that I know it can be frustrating at times, or it might seem frustrating that somebody's in a situation and maybe they aren't ready to get out of that yet, but just know that even when they do, it's not easy either, right? It's not the solution to the problem. So there's a lot that goes on with that behind the scenes. But I do want to talk about my work background, because those experiences growing up led me to be a social worker. There's no surprises there, I'm assuming, right? I just really had a passion for working with people who were from traumatic situations. And I did spend some time here at IU working with students who've experienced sexual violence. So that can be sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, all of those things, right? And maybe if you think of college students, you think of sexual assault. That's in the news a lot. But when I think of college students too, I mean, people are in dating and domestic violent relationships. They're experiencing stalking. They're experiencing sexual harassment. And I think the biggest thing I always took from my meetings with these students, they would come to me and say, well, I knew you were here, but I just didn't think what was happening to me was bad enough. So I'm like, what? You know, we would talk about how whatever was happening to them is something that shouldn't be happening to them. And I think that's important as you interact with the people you know, interact with your friends, look for those little signs that might show that something's going on, because people just don't realize that if it's not an extreme situation, that it's a bad situation still, right? I've worked with some students who had some great, I guess you could call them victories, where their assaulters or their abusers were held responsible at IU and were asked to leave campus. I think of one in particular where it was on video, literally him in a dorm, pushing her up against a wall, and really terrifying her, tripping her, things like this. It was all on video. So he chose to say no, right? Like, that's not what was happening. But fortunately, IU was like, nope, that's not great behavior. So they asked that student to leave. So there are some resources in place as a student. That's a Title IX thing. Any school that has public funding from like the government has somebody you can report Title IX things to. Ivy Tech has it as well. So please, if you're in any types of those relationships, or if you feel like something's not going well, please make sure you reach out to somebody, no matter what school you're at, or if you're in the community, of course, you have Middle Way House. If you're at IU, you have confidential victim advocates. If I heard that there might be some IU students here. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, and that's going back to the it's not always easy thing, right? So I remember a student that I was working with who was in an unhealthy relationship, and I would say for the first 6 meetings I had with her, she just came into my office and just bawled her eyes out, just cried for an hour, and then that's all she would want to do. So we did that for like 6 meetings before she could finally come back and say, okay, like, here's what's going on, right? So it takes time. So don't give up on people. They really do need your support. And sometimes literally I just sat there with her, right? You don't have to be a therapist to know how to support somebody. You can just sit there. You can offer them just a listening ear, just being in the same room. It doesn't require you to have a background in mental health. So take some time and just think about how you can be a good active listener to people who might be disclosing to you. That's really important as well. Right now, I just recently started at the Bloomington Police Department working as the very first ever social worker, so I'm really excited to see what that's all about. Yes, thanks. Great job. I am really proud of the Bloomington Police Department. They're working hard to improve their relationships, and some of that is going to be me working with victims or survivors, however they want to identify themselves as. So I'm looking forward to seeing that grow, and I am really excited to be here, and I'm glad that you all came out to talk about this really important topic because it affects so many people. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, it's time for our keynote speaker, and I'm very excited about her. I read her bio. It's lengthy, but I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to let her tell her story, but I'm going to tell you a few things. I am going to tell you a few things about her. Ms. Gilchrist, Erika Gilchrist, I just want to let you know that she is a amazing speaker. As you guys came in, you heard a little bit about her talk, her speaking. So we look forward to her really giving us some inspirational leadership here. She's also a trainer for Monsters Inc. and Cisco Systems. You will see she does have her books listed. I have a couple of her books listed out here, but she was featured, or probably still is featured as one of the top 15 most powerful women of Southside Chicago. So she does have a expo that she does every October, and when I looked at her books, she didn't bring all the 20 books that she has, but she does have those back there, and quite a few of them, all of them caught my eye though. So that she has published. She says how to publish a book now for those English students that want to publish a book. You might want to get that book, The Secrets of Being an Unstoppable Woman. If You Leave, I Will Kill You. That was my favorite title that caught my eye, and Women Thriving Fearlessly. All of them caught my eye, but I just wanted to let you know that she does have those for sale for you. Also, we do have them in the library. I don't know whether you could be able to check them out because she did take the time to autograph them for us. So just want to let you know that. Ms. Gilchrist, it's all yours.
Thank you. I had to make sure my glasses were up here because at some point, I'm going to be using them. Hey! Y'all all right? It's okay if the answer is no. It really is, because sometimes if I say you okay and someone says no, then let's have a conversation. I am so glad that you all are here. I've spoken at various campuses of Ivy Tech, and I'm always thrilled when I get invited back. I'm like, they like me. That's so nice. So I am Erika Gilchrist, born and raised on the south side of Chicago, and my story is something straight out of a Lifetime movie. I cannot make this stuff up. And someone asked me once, they said, well, if you could just carve your life out differently, wouldn't you eliminate all that stuff? And immediately I went, no. All of that stuff that happened to me, it brought me to this moment in front of you fine people. I wouldn't change a thing. So with my story, that's me, 5 years old. And that little space between my lips, I call that my window of opportunity. So I was the kid who got in trouble in school for talking too much. But now I get paid for it. So that worked out really, really well for me. I was raised by my grandmother, and she was, baby, that mouth of yours is going to make you some money one day, but right now I need you to shut it, okay? Be quiet now. So at the age of 3, my father was killed in a tragic train accident. And my mother, who was just stricken with grief, she disappeared and abandoned my sister and me. So here I am. I'm 3 years old, and I have no parents. Thank goodness for grandmothers. My grandmother took my sister and myself in, and she raised us, which sounds like a really happy ending, but keep listening. While I was in that household, my grandmother raised her kids, her grandkids, and in some cases her great-grandkids. The house was always crowded. She couldn't keep an eye on everything, and it was in that household is where I was sexually molested by those who were supposed to be there to protect me. So that confused me about the role that men were supposed to play in my life. Were they my protectors or were they my predators? And I took that mindset with me into my teen years, my young adult years, and even into my womanhood. Do you have any idea what that does to the psyche of a little girl who's trying to figure out life? I moved out of the house when I was 19 years old. And I don't care what you think you know at the age of 19, you don't know much. Because I went out into the world, I was like, I'm going to conquer this world. But the world tore me to pieces. I found myself in 2 abusive relationships. When I escaped the last one, I found myself sleeping in my van until it got too cold, and then I wound up in a shelter where I shared a single bedroom with 5 other people. At one point, I just decided, you know what, life is just too hard. It can't be this hard. And I didn't want to be here anymore, meaning Earth. And I tried to commit suicide. So let's recap. Abandoned at the age of 3, sexually molested during my formative years, domestic abuse, homelessness, and suicide attempts. For all intents and purposes, I should be a basket case. But I'm not. Today, I am an award-winning speaker, a 13-time published author. I was featured as one of the 15 most powerful women on the South Side of Chicago, CLTV, Rolling Out Magazine, and Chicago Woman Magazine. And I own WTF, but that stands for Women Thriving Fearlessly, and it is the largest expo for women business in Chicago. I love my life. I love it. So when people ask, would you erase all of that stuff? Absolutely not. I wouldn't want to go through it again. And I wouldn't want anyone else to go through that. But it was because of those things that I was able to stand before you today talking to you about what it is that happened to me. It used to be really hard. It's gotten easier over the years. And there's still some aspects of my life I've never talked about publicly. Maybe one day, I'm not sure. So when I'm asked to talk about abuse, one of the first things I have a responsibility to do is to educate you about what that is. Many people have conceptions about what abuse is, and many of them are simply wrong. There is a sneaky side of abuse. So you have the physical, which is the one that most people are familiar with. And physical abuse leaves evidence, depending on how severe it is. Bruises, cuts, broken bones, etc. There's verbal abuse. If anyone says to you, "You're so stupid," and I listened to that list and it broke me. Verbal abuse. Financial abuse. Some people don't even realize that exists. I had a woman tell me, "Well, Erika, I don't make much money. How can I be financially abused?" I don't care if you make $5 an hour or $50,000 an hour. Financial abuse. If you don't have access to the money that you earned, or if you don't have a say in what happens with that money, that is financial abuse. If you have zero control over the money you earn, that is financial abuse. There's emotional abuse. One of my abusers said this to me, and it's really kind of psychological. It's like, you're pretty cute to be so fat. Some people will hear that and, "Oh man, that's a jerk." That is a form of abuse. Can you imagine hearing that over and over and over again, or some rendition of that? How do you think that would make me feel about myself if this is someone I care about? That is emotional abuse. Digital abuse. If they demand your passwords, they need to see your phone, they need to see your tablet, they need to control who your Facebook friends are, your Instagram followers, they need to see what you're going to tweet before you tweet it. That is digital abuse. Sexual abuse. There is such a thing. Even if you are married, abuse has no place in any relationship. So with all of this, what's interesting is that sometimes when I interview women, I'm like, "So have you ever been in an abusive relationship?" They say no. I say, "How do you know?" "They never laid a hand on me." And then I go through all of these, the conversation changes. "Oh, well, maybe I have been in an abusive relationship." They don't have to put a hand on you for you to be abused. If there's a relationship where you feel like you have zero control, and control is the operative word, that is an abusive relationship. There's a few more things I'm going to go over with you, but I don't quite understand how I got into an abusive relationship to begin with. Now, I grew up on the South Side of Chicago, so there's a certain element that I have. And I'm like, "No, I'm too strong for that. I'm too smart for that. I found myself right in the middle of it." So some people ask, "Well, how did I get here? How did I get into an abusive relationship? What happened?" I'm going to tell you what happened. So they were very charming in the beginning when you met them. Made you laugh. They were very accommodating. Whatever it is that you want, "Yeah, we can do that, no problem." They complimented you a lot. So let's say you're on a first date and you have all of the chemistry that's happening, and they're like, "Oh man, me too, I like that stuff too. Oh, you like that? Oh, I went there, you went there." You have all these things in common, and it's just clicking. You're like, "I can see myself with this person." On that first date, they're not going to look at you across the table and go, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, in 6 months, I'm going to call you trash and slap you around a little bit." That's not how that works. If abuse is about control, first things first, they have to lure you in. Nobody on the first date is just going to smack you upside the head. If they do, at that moment, you know, oh, this is over. I'm not seeing this person again, and I'm filing a report with the police because that is assault. That's not how that happens. This is how they get you. My ex's girlfriend at the time had called me. She Googled me online, and she's like, Erika, my name is such and such, and I'm going to call this guy Winston. I'm dating Winston now, and I saw your website. How did someone like that get women like us? I said, I'm going to tell you how it happened. And I ran down a bullet point list. I said, when he came over, he cooked for you, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Complimented your outfit. Yep. Got your nails done, got your hair done. And then when he started spending the night, he would leave little things around the house for us with a toothbrush and a pair of socks, a couple of books. Mowed the lawn, raked the leaves, shoveled the snow. Charmed the pants off of your friends and your parents. Everyone fell in love with them. She said, yeah, all of that happened. I said, And then at one point you decided, you know what, this is a little too much. I'm going to pull it back. And that was not a welcomed idea. Yep, that's exactly what happened. I said, and then he made a key to your place, didn't he? Yeah. I said, you didn't even tell him to do it, did you? Mm-mm. That's how that happened. And then when you try and tell your friends and family, this dude is crazy. And he done charmed the pants off of them already. They're like, well, no, he's a nice guy. Hey, your car note for you? We do all this stuff. Maybe you're just being too picky. That is a form of isolation, to separate you from your support system. Because if you are heavily tied to your support system, they can't control you. How do people get into these situations? This is how it happens, which is why I tell anyone, before you commit, give it some time. Give it some time. That representative that they show you in the beginning can only last so long. And then the real them shows up. Ah, I see you now. This is who I'm dealing with. If there is someone who calls for your help and they say, you know what, I'm in this situation. I really need some help. Some people say, well, I don't understand. Why don't you just leave? Just leave. It really is that simple. No, it's not. One of the books is If You Will Leave, I Will Kill You. And I named it that because that is what I was told. If you leave, I will kill you, getting off the beaten path of domestic violence. So there are a couple of things I'm going to read from here. When people say, well, why don't you just leave? I want to back this up with some factual information. Of the total domestic violence homicides, approximately 75% of the victims were killed as they either attempted to leave or after they left the relationship. 75%. And abuse increases approximately 70% once they get wind that the other person's trying to leave. So when people say, why don't you just go? Some people understand. They will carry out that threat. And I'd rather be here than not. And then remember I talked about financial abuse? If that person controls all the money and separated you from your support system, where are you going? How are you going to eat? It's not that simple. So if someone tells you that they need help, please don't say, why don't you just leave? If you've never been in that situation, it is not a pleasant space. First of all, believe them and do whatever it is that you can. Even if you have to refer them to resources, and I'm so glad you all have resources here. That is amazing. So now let's say it's time. The victim decides, I'm out of here. I am leaving. So I have 15 exit strategies in this book. The number one thing you need to understand about any exit strategy, do not change your behavior one bit. Everything needs to be exactly the way it is every day. Because if they get wind of the fact that you are trying to leave, the chances of the abuse increasing is about 70%. So there's 15 exit strategies I came up with, but I'm just going to read a few of them. So the first one, you want to purchase a prepaid cell phone or a government phone. You want to program all of the pertinent contacts, the people who you really need to be in touch with. So you're going to take that phone and a charger. You're going to keep it in a storage unit, safe deposit box, someplace away from you. So when it's time for you to go, you are going to take your regular phone, the one you use all the time. You are going to reset it to the factory default settings. That means all the contacts are gone. It's like they just bought it. It doesn't have where you've been, no text messages, no nothing. Leave it in the space where the abuse took place. Why would you want to do that? It has GPS on it. You have no idea what they've done to the phone to track you. And that's the only phone they're aware of. So you leave that phone, set it to the factory default. So if they're going through it, they're not going to find anything, and leave it there with the abuser. And when you're ready to go, you go to that safe deposit box, you go to that storage facility, wherever you have that phone hidden, and then you contact your support system. Another exit strategy. By the way, the ones I'm naming are things that I've actually had to do. So with this one, purchase a bus, plane, or train ticket anywhere right now, and for your children, if at all possible, but don't take the trip. Because what's going to happen, you're going to get a credit with that transportation company. Now, Megabus don't play that, so you don't do that. You don't take the trip, you lost it. So make sure you check with them to say, hey, if I don't take the trip, can I get a credit? Okay? So you purchase a ticket, you don't actually take the trip, but now you have a credit. There's money stored with that transportation company. When it is time for you to go, if you are flat broke, you have your phone, and now you can go to that company, Southwest, whatever it is, and you say, okay, I need to get out of here. You don't have to worry about paying for the ticket. It's time to go. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? No, it could be no. I know I tease like that, like yes or yes. They're the only two options you have. But no, if you don't understand, you can tell me. The next exit strategy, any medications, necessary medications that you have, wherever you put that phone, put those medications there too. One of the ladies I support, she has a lot of health issues, so she has a lot of meds, and she needs them for now. When she decided to leave her abuser, she left her meds behind. And she wound up in the emergency room. Who do you think her emergency contact person was? And things got much worse from there. If there's any medication that you have that you absolutely need, I don't know what you have to do to get another bottle to tell them you dropped it down the sink, that ran over with a car, whatever. Get something. And put it away with that cell phone. So when you leave, you're not physically in danger of passing out or whatever it is your medical condition is. You want to take care of yourself. Oh, wow. Every time I read this one, I relive that experience. You want to order duplicates of your birth certificate, driver's license, passport, and social media card. My ex took all of that and burned it. I had no ID. No social security card, no birth certificate, no passport. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get one of those things without the other? I went to Social Security Ministry. I need a social security card. What they asked me for? I need an ID. What they asked me for? And I had the police report. I had all that. Nobody would help me. And I'm at the courthouse. I'm like, okay, listen. I said, I really need this. Now, I was embarrassed at the time. I just said, there was a fire in my house and everything got destroyed. So I really need you to give me my birth certificate and da-da-da. And she was like, ma'am, I can't help you. Do you have any form of ID, something with your picture? And I said, I don't have that. She's like, I can't help you. So at this point, I got desperate and I just kind of looked around and I leaned in and I told her what was going on and I showed her the police report. And she nodded and she said, okay. She says, ma'am, if you can show me a work ID, I'll be happy to give you your birth certificate. I said, girl, I ain't got no. She said, ma'am, If you can show me a work ID, something with your picture on it, it doesn't have to be fancy. I'm not going to check it. I just need to see something with your picture. Oh, I'll be right back. I went over, now I'm not telling you. I'm just telling you what happened to me. So I went over to Home Depot, I took a selfie as much as I could, and I cut it out, and I put it in a little laminated thing, and I downloaded a logo, I don't even know what logo, some hotel off the internet, and put it on there. And I was like, here you go. She says, now I can help you. She said, you got it? I said, thank you. I appreciate that. And I was able, finally, to get all of that stuff. So those duplicates, where are you going to put it? You're going to put it with the cell phone, you're going to put it with the medications. Okay? I'd hate to have you out there and you go to Southwest. They might let you on no plane without an ID. So make sure you have that stuff. Okay, the last one. That's why I brought my glasses. So download safety apps on your phone. There's a bunch of different safety apps that you have, and make sure it's on the new phone too. So if anything happens, there's an alert system, and it'll alert the people who support you. It'll send it to their phone to signal trouble. When you are ready to leave, there's 15 exit strategies in here for you. Do not change your behavior at all. And if you are supporting someone who is serious about leaving, give them these exit strategies and help them. Now, what happens when you're gone? You left. Do you have any money? What if you are not financially equipped at this time? So I also have a list of like side hustles you can do to earn some money. One of my authors, her name's Danielle Pierce, and Danielle is amazing. She did this whole video on different side hustles that you can do, and some of them pay extremely well. If you want the link to that video, in addition to what I have here, if you go on Instagram, just send me a message and say, Erika, send me the link with that. One of the side hustles is she became a FEMA inspector. I don't know if any of you know someone who's that. And she said, Erika, I did that for 90 days and I made about $32,000. I'm like, girl, what's that website? Like 32, 000, okay then. But in listening, I watched the whole video and it was just like nugget after nugget after nugget. It was all these ways to make money. I'm like, I didn't know you could do that. Wait, you could do this? And she's like, did you know that you can go and look at apartments as if you actually want it and just write a report of how they treated you and they pay you for that? No, I didn't know that. Anywhere between $25 to $40 each time. If you do that 3 or 4 times a day, I went, oh, girl, I like that. So if you want that link, find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, doesn't matter. Everything's under Erika Gilchrist, by the way. I am not difficult to find. If you Google me, you will find me. And I said that to somebody who owed me money once. He's like, I couldn't find you. You found me when you wanted the money. I am not a difficult person to find. All right, so let's just say you have your side hustle. You're able to kind of get yourself back. I want you to start working on yourself. Work on yourself as a human who is being before you get into another relationship. And part of working on yourself is understanding your value and your worth and to stop apologizing. We apologize for things we have no business apologizing for. I think I have 18 things not to apologize for in the book, but I'm going to go over a few things. The first one, your appearance. Maybe you don't look the way you want to look right now. So what? You don't apologize for that. But I understand that there could have been a level of programming involved in that. You're pretty cute to be so fat. So maybe going forward, I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not, like a size whatever, and you don't do that. If you want to change your appearance for whatever reason, let it be because you want to do that. But however you look right now is however you look, and you don't apologize for that. Do not apologize for being smart. I'm a nerd, and I'm okay with that. Always been one. Always. Where's Erika? Reading a book. Doing homework. Doing a project. If you are smart and you know you're smart, it's okay. And you don't have to apologize for that. There are people who are smart and they're made to feel dumb, but that is an insecurity on the part of the other person. I need you to act right. I need to cut you down to size. No, that's your issue, not mine. Do not apologize for setting boundaries. I'm sorry, but if you could not do this, why are you sorry? Don't do this. This does not work for me. Now, I know I'm saying set boundaries like it's really easy. So I'm going to give you some language around that. Let me give you some things you can actually say. So think about the things that you may value: faith, community, feeling safe, your health, relationships, whatever. Let's take communication as an example. What if you're in a relationship with someone and they just shut down? No matter what you ask them, they won't communicate with you. They won't tell you what they're thinking or what they're feeling, and you're frustrated with that. But communication is a value for you. If we were going to address that, the language you would use is that you would say what the observation is, and then you state the value. So it would sound something like this. It would say, hey, you know what? I noticed anytime I ask you a question or ask what you're thinking or feeling, you shut down. That doesn't work for me because I value communication. State the behavior, then state the value. If your value is feeling safe, after my second abusive relationship, it was some years before I got into another one, but he yelled everything. And I don't mean like aggressively, like he was going to get me. Like in his house, and I met his family. Everybody yells everything. Hand me that fork. Why can't you just say, may I have the fork, please? Everything is yelled. But think about my background. Even if you don't mean me any harm, if you're constantly yelling at me, that is a trigger for me. So I had to say, hey! And I spoke in the language that he understood. Hey! I noticed that your voice goes up a lot when you're communicating the simplest things. I want you to think about what I told you. That behavior doesn't work for me because I value feeling safe. That's a trigger for me. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Don't apologize for setting boundaries. Don't apologize for asking for what you need. There's a certain level of independence that I like to have, but everybody needs somebody sometime. Don't say, you know what, I'm sorry. Can I get a ride to work? I'm sorry, can I just ask for what you need? Just ask. And if you're asking someone who makes you feel terrible about it, that ought not be the person you ask. Do not apologize for shedding tears. And I'm glad there are men in the room. Men cry. Did y'all know that? Someone said, well, men are emotional. Have you ever seen a man at a Super Bowl? You tell me men are not emotional. Yes, they are, just like the rest of us. But I don't want you to apologize if you're feeling something and it makes you cry, whether it makes you cry to tears of joy or tears of sadness. You don't apologize for that. As many times I've told my story, I can say it in my sleep, back to back, but every now and then, depending on what else is going on in my life, I'll shed a tear right on stage. No apologies. I'll wipe it away and I'll keep it moving. Do not apologize for shedding tears. Do not apologize for being in disagreement with someone. You know, I'm sorry we don't agree on this. No, we don't agree on this. And it looks like here's why. So let's talk about how we can resolve this. You don't apologize for being in disagreement with someone. Do not apologize for wanting to leave a relationship. If you are ready to go, don't say sorry about that. And if you're ready to go, that likely means there's something about that just don't sit right with you. And that's okay. And it doesn't even have to be an abusive relationship. If you're ready to go, you're ready to go. That no longer serves you well. That's okay. Once you work on yourself, number one question I get is, Erika, well, after all of that stuff, how did you go from that, suicide attempts, to owning the largest expo for women in business in Chicago? Like, there's a huge gap you left out. First step, I went into therapy. I worked on me. And in therapy, here's what I understood. Oh, I wasn't just this horrible little girl who deserved to be abused. I learned I wasn't this horrible woman who deserved to be punched in the face in my sleep. I wasn't that. That was not my fault. So when you are ready to get into a relationship, You need it to be a healthy one. But if you're going to build a healthy relationship, you got to know what that looks like. I'll ask, are you in a healthy relationship? Yeah, sure. And I'm like, how do you know? Nobody knows how to answer that. How do you know when you're in a healthy relationship? In here, I have 23 points of a healthy relationship, and I'm only going to read some of them. You know that you're in a healthy relationship if you feel emotionally safe with them. There's some things that you want to share, and you feel safe sharing that with them, meaning they're not going to judge you. You're in a healthy relationship when your privacy is respected. They're not constantly going through your phone, rambling through your glove compartment, following you around. You feel safe living as an individual in addition to being part of a union. You know, a union makes up individuals. When you all right, as you are, in addition to being part of a union, that is a sign of a healthy relationship. The idea of being vulnerable with them does not scare you. If there's something you want to reveal, you're like, oh crap. I said this to one person one time and they just judged me and they talked about me, they spread it around, and you're scared of that happening again, but you're not scared with this person, that is a sign of a healthy relationship. You're able to disagree without it escalating to any form of abuse. You are able to talk about your conflicts and you are not worried about whether or not it's going to turn abusive. You don't feel the need to check in out of fear that there will be unsafe consequences. At one point, I knew I better text, I better call, I better do something so that I don't get home and I hear, where you been all day? If you want to check in, but let it be because you want to, not because you fear that there's going to be a consequence. The last sign that you are in a healthy relationship: you don't feel pressure to participate in things that you're uncomfortable with. If you're going to be in a healthy relationship, you have to know what that looks like. Whatever relationship that you're in now, you don't have to tell me, but I want you to ask yourself, is it healthy for you? Answer that question for yourself. Or if someone is showing interest, is this something that I think is going to be healthy for me? Am I in a place where I can offer my most authentic self to this person? Do not get into a relationship if you have not worked on yourself. They might be a very good person. Don't do that to them. Work on you. That is important. In this envelope, can you all see what this is? What is that? What is it? It's a $100 bill. So as I'm holding this up and I said, who wants it? Raise your hand if you want it. Why do you want it? Buy me some ice cream. Can't afford groceries this week, right? You want it, right? Okay. Who still wants it? Anybody? Why? She said, because you can throw it. And if you throw it right here. All right, that's fine. All right, so if I just make it nice and dirty and crinkled up. Who wants it now? You still want it. Okay. Why do you still want it? It still has value. All right, so here's the thing. You are a lot like this $100 bill. So when this $100 bill first went into circulation, it was all crisp. And it's like you know, when you're first born, all the babies are, oh, that's so cute. Everybody wants to spend time with you. And then life starts to happen. And you get a little wrinkled, you get a little dirty. Life starts stomping on you. And you start to feel a little less worthy. You are exactly like this $100 bill. The reason you want this is because it's still worth something. So regardless of how dirty or how many times people step on it or how many wrinkles are on you, you never lose your worth. You are still worth something. So during that time when you just feel like, oh my God, I'm not, but I've gone through this, I've gone through that, you never lose your worth. It doesn't go away. And the moment you understand that, the moment you're going to be able to set those boundaries without apologizing, the moment you're able to articulate, this behavior does not work for me because I value such and such. The moment you understand that, you go into therapy to work on yourself so that you can be a great addition to a union and not have them be 100% caretaker. For those of you who are able to stand, please stand. If you are able to stretch your arms out to the side and you hit someone, you're too close. Spread it out. There's a lot of room in here. We're good? Yes? All right. So all I want you to do, I want you to watch me first. Don't do anything. You can put your arms down. I'm going to show you what you're going to do. So you're going to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. You're going to relax your shoulders. Don't do anything yet. I'm going to have you raise your right arm, and I'm going to have you point your finger. And then I'm going to say, go. When I say go, you are going to turn in the direction of your arm. Keep your feet planted. Go as far as you can go, and then I want you to visually mark the spot on the wall. That's all I want you to do. Okay? All right. Feet shoulder width apart. Raise your right arm. You guys are going to go that way. Keep your feet planted. When I say go, I want you to turn, go as far as you can go, and visually mark the spot on the wall. Ready? Go. All right, you see that spot? Excellent. Turn face to front. Arms down. You are in a safe space. Close your eyes. Both of them. See you peeking at me. So I want you to imagine your ideal life. It cannot get any better than this. 1 year from today, April 11th, 2020. It cannot get any better than this. You have designed it to the point of wonderfulness. What does it look like to you? I want you to think about, what does your bank account look like? Imagine your health. What is that like? How's the family? Your best life. How's your career? Now, keeping your eyes closed, do not move your body at all. I want you to imagine that spot that you just imagined on the wall and hold that image in your mind. Now, I want you to imagine, without moving, that your arm moved just 6 inches past that spot. And I want you to visually mark that spot in your mind. Now, imagine that your arm moved just one more inch. And then visually mark that spot in your mind. Open your eyes. All right, we're going to do this exercise again. Feet, shoulder width apart. Relax the shoulders. Your right arm's going to come up. When I say go, I want you to turn. Go as far as you can go. Ready? Go. Turn, 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 turn. Turn face to front. How many of you all went further the second time? That is awesome. Have a seat. Let me tell you what just happened. The first time, I said, go around as far as you can go. And you did, until you saw yourself going further. Your body is automatically going to follow where the mind takes it. So when I said, imagine your ideal life, what does your bank account look like? Go further. Wherever you had in your mind, go further than that. How's your health? Wherever you were with that, go further. How's your career? Go further. Whatever it is you had in your mind as your ideal life, I need you to push harder. Because what's in here is what's going to make this move. You all are humans who are engaging with other humans who are being. That means that we're flawed. And as flawed humans, we are going to have conflict. And that's okay. And a lot of occasions, it could be healthy. But you're not going to go any further if you stay stagnant in where you are, and if you are not willing to work on yourself to add growth to not just yourself, but to the lives of other people. I usually ask for Q&A at this point, but we have a Q&A coming up. So I'm going to stop running my mouth for now. And I want to say, Mr. Soto, thank you. And thank you all so much for having me.
First question, thank you. And I'm just mixing these up, Jim, just grabbing it at random. First question, Erica, this is for you. You have so much confidence and amazing energy, which you do.
Thank you.
How did you build your confidence, and do you still need to work on it?
How I built the confidence is I started doing things that terrify me. And that is not an easy thing to do. I'm still working on it. I'm still a work in progress. I do things that I am terrified to do. I go toe-to-toe with it. That is how I build confidence. So I think that one of the misconceptions people have is that you have to get courage in order to do a thing, but it's the opposite. You have to keep doing a thing in order to gain courage by doing it. So I suck it up and I just do it. And the therapy helped. It helped me understand that I wasn't just this worthless person. I hope that answered the question.
Sure.
An example or two. One of them, let me see, the best way I can say this is that I was a chronic people pleaser. I didn't care what people asked me to do, I would just do it. Whether I knew how to do it, whether I wanted to do it, it didn't matter. So I had to start saying no, which at times made me cry because I felt so guilty about it. And I didn't like ticking people off. So at a restaurant, if I order a salad without onions and they bring me a salad with onions on it, usually I would just pick it off, put it to the side and eat the salad. But I had to say, no, ma'am or sir, I asked for a salad without onions. Will you take this one back and bring me another one, please? And it would just terrify me. I mean, it's something that simple. But that's a couple of examples. Another example, good grief. Another example, I had to start standing up to my family, because they were probably the biggest influence of, they weren't a great influence. I'm gonna put that there. So I had to start telling them no. And now it's so easy for me to say no, it's scary. And they don't ask me for stuff anymore. You're welcome.
This question's for all of our panelists. So what are some advanced warning signs of domestic abuse? For example, when they are being charismatic, charming, funny, what are maybe some things we can spot in that phase?
You covered a lot of them, that everybody does seem to like them. Relationships that are abusive often start very fast. They, like a lot of what she said, they really fast when I start the relationship, you'll hear things like, you know, I've never met anybody like you. All of my other partners were horrible, but you're different, you're special. I think too, sometimes people that you know can pick up on kind of signs oftentimes before you yourself can in the relationship. If you're starting to end up isolated from your friends, not allowed to spend time with them, maybe on the weekend you and your friends always go out, and all of a sudden the person that you're seeing is saying, you know, but I thought we worked all week. I really wanted us to spend time together instead of you going out and spending time. You really would rather do that than spend time with me. That friend is probably picking up on things that you're not able to spend time with them anymore. A lot of times I tell people, once you're in a relationship, like about 2 months, Now, of course, taking into consideration the charming part, but the friends that you have or the people that really care about you, go to them after a couple months of the relationship and ask them what their thoughts are on the relationship, because oftentimes those people that they've already started isolating you from are already picking up on the problems. Do you want?
Some of the other signs in a relationship that it is heading toward abuse, and they're really subtle. If your phone goes off like a text message and it's like, oh, who's that? It starts off, who's that? To who is that? Another sign that abuse is on the horizon, if you are dressed up for whatever reason, and it's just one of those days where you really feel like you look good. Just, you like, I'm good. And instead of complimenting you, they tell you what's wrong with your outfit. It's like, yeah, but you really gonna wear that?
Why are you wearing that?
Why are you wearing that? Why are you wearing that? And one of my ex-abusers, the outfit I met him in was no longer acceptable after we became a couple. Why are you wearing that? I got you in it. Why is that a problem? But those are some of the subtle signs. And just like you said, that isolation, it's like, no, I want to spend time with you. You don't have to hang out with them. We can do that. What are you guys going to do? We're going to go to a club. We can go to a club. If you start to see signs where they pull you away from the people you like to spend time with, that's a sign that it's on the horizon.
I think a couple other things too is just start kind of paying attention to their genuine response to like a news story, right? Like, oh, like something happened on the news and they're like, oh, psh, whatever, like that person is lying or whatever. Like start picking up on those types of mindsets, because they might be trying to like joke around, but they're really trying to feel it out, and that's how they're gonna portray themselves. I mean, that's how they're gonna be eventually, right? So I think just start picking up how they respond to just basic stuff that doesn't have anything to do with you or you yourself as a couple.
How they talk about their previous partners. That's a huge one.
I asked the question once. I said, if I gathered all of your exes together and I asked them about you, what's the common thing they would all say about you? He's like, well, all those bees are crazy, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I got you. So all of them crazy. Got it.
Does abuse always happen in increments?
No, not always. Sometimes there are triggers you don't know anything about. And it can just be an explosive situation. There is a myth that abusers they're blowing off steam and you just happen to be the one that's there, but that's garbage. Because if that were the case, they would lash out and hit people at their church. They would hit people at their job. They would hit people in the grocery store. If it's just you, no. It's that abuse one-on-one, and it doesn't always happen in increments. The first time my first abuser hit me, I had no signs of it. We were in the car. I don't know what I said, but he reached around and wham, right in my face, and it startled me. So no, it doesn't always happen in increments. And he got triggered by something he saw and just decided he wanted to hit me.
There is the cycle of violence where oftentimes there's the honeymoon stage, and that's kind of how it is when you first meet the person. And then there's the tension building stage, the explosion, and then the apologies and I'm sorries, and then it goes back up into the honeymoon stage. A lot of abusive relationships will follow that pattern, and sometimes it'll take a long time to get from the tension building stage back to the honeymoon stage. Sometimes that is a lot of what keeps the individual hanging in the relationship, because during that honeymoon stage, that's the person that they fell in love with. Even though they're an abuser, they're not all bad, and they're constantly trying to get back into that space where things are good. So as abusive relationships can become more severe, sometimes that cycle can go very fast, and sometimes it even eventually starts skipping the honeymoon stage, and it just goes from tension to abuse.
Good.
Erika, these next two questions are for you. First, did you have any children from the relationships that you were involved in?
No, I did get pregnant, and he jumped on me in the parking lot, and I lost the baby. So I wasn't happy about the way it happened, but I am relieved that I did not have a child with this person. So no, right now I don't have any biological children, and that was the one incident that happened with him.
Erika, at what point did you gain the courage to leave your first abusive relationship? How did you know when or how to leave it?
So I was laying in the bed, and he was laying next to me. And I don't know how to explain it, but I'm just going to call it the Southside element I was telling you all about before, because I grew up watching women in my family get their tails kicked. And as a young girl, I couldn't do anything about it. You know, I wanted to protect them, and I couldn't do anything. And I remember laying in the bed, and I looked over at him, and I was infuriated. I used to think that temporary insanity was just garbage. It is not. Because when I looked over at this man, I said, one of us is going to die tonight, and I'm prepared. He's not mentally prepared to go where I'm going to go. I said, it's going to stop tonight. I just had enough. I got up, I went into the kitchen, and I opened up all the cabinets. I opened the refrigerator, and I just started dumping stuff out, ripping boxes and food and all over the place. And I went in the refrigerator and got eggs and threw them all over the place. And some of you are like, why would you do that? I needed to signify a struggle. That's where I was with this. I grabbed a knife, I went in the bedroom, and I woke him up. Get out. Get out of my house. He was 6'4", 200 and whatever he was, and I did not care. I did not care, because a knife will slice flesh regardless of how big or small you are. And that's where I was. And mentally, I'd already said goodbye to my family. I said goodbye to my friends, and I meant it. It's going to end tonight. And when I woke him up and I told him to get out, he looked, it was the weirdest thing. He looked at me like he had never seen me before. And then when he got up, and you have to pass through the kitchen to leave. And when he looked and saw all of this stuff and chairs turned over and everything, I think it dawned on him what it was I was trying to do. And he walked out. I never saw him again. I don't know what triggered it exactly, but it was just something in me that just was fed up. I had enough, and if it means I got to lose my life, then so be it. But I'm telling you, I'm not going down without a fight. And I had taken self-defense classes, so I know how to crush an esophagus, I know how to break bones, I know how to make people go to sleep.
How do you deprogram unhealthy behaviors that have been ingrained your whole life? How do I make myself leave once I know the relationship is unhealthy, even if I recognize the signs?
I don't want to hog the floor. You all go ahead.
I think that if you've not left yet, and you've not left because you're not ready yet, don't be hard on yourself. I think everybody knows their situation best, and everybody knows the abuser. And I think sometimes people can make you feel guilty for staying in an abusive relationship longer than what they think you should or what you think you should. But I think you're going to know that moment when you feel safe enough to go. And I don't think anybody can judge that but you. And if you are ready to go, I think finding the support systems, knowing you're not going to be judged. That's why Middle Way House never tells anybody what they have to do. We never tell somebody you have to leave, you have to get a protective order, you have to do this, that, and the other. Because we know we want to empower people to make the decision for themselves when they're ready. If we tell them what to do, then if they decide that's not best for them at the moment and they go back to the relationship, when they're really ready to leave, they may not come back to us for help. They'll be afraid that we're going to look at them and say, well, if you would have done what we told you before, and we're never going to do that. So what I would say is, please don't be hard on yourself if you've not left. Every day you're growing and getting closer to that point. I want you to be safe in that situation, and when it feels safe and right for you, know that there's help available.
This question is really great. I mean, there's already insight, right? This person's implying like, okay, I feel like there's something wrong here. And that's great because that takes some time to get to, right? Something else you can start doing is, and we do it all the time in just basic cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Start challenging the thoughts that come to your head. Well, first, identify what's coming to your head, right? So you might have years of somebody telling you that you're worthless or that you don't mean anything and that nobody's going to miss you, right? So try to start identifying those thoughts and then try to start challenging those thoughts. And that's how you can start building that confidence incrementally when you can't go out and do what you want to do yet, right? So worthless. Am I really worthless? Let me think about just whatever it is. There are little things out there, right? Things you've done before, things you hope to do. We all have hopes, and you still deserve to be able to do those things, right? So I think just starting to identify those thoughts, unhealthy thoughts, and then being able to try to challenge them will help you start building that confidence to get to the place where you feel like you are worthy and maybe be able to take that step at that point.
In the deprogramming process, the first part of that question, how do I deprogram, what's been ingrained in me for so long? The first thing I want you to understand is that it's a lot more difficult to deprogram in a toxic environment. So if you're choosing to stay right now for safety reasons or whatever your reason is, doesn't matter. There are other things that you can do to start that deprogramming process with your Bluetooth in your ear, going to sleep, listening to motivation. There's no shortage of motivational affirmations and videos that are online. Bury that into your subconscious while you are sleeping. When you wake up, be mindful of your conversation. Who's the first person you call or text in the morning? Is that person toxic? You're starting your morning off talking to and communicating with someone who is toxic. You're going to have to start to slowly remove toxicity, even if you're still in that relationship. But you're going to have to create a balance somewhere. If it's toxic over here, you're going to have to start motivating here until you are absolutely ready to go. That's how the deprogramming process starts. Whoever you are, I'm very proud of you right now for recognizing the signs, for asking for how do I do this, and also recognizing that there is a deprogramming that needs to take place. You're way ahead of a lot of people who are in abusive relationships. So I'm very proud of you. And if there's an exercise I have that I usually do, I'd be happy to send that to you, and it was something that helped me.
This is something that hasn't been addressed yet. How do you help a parent get out of an abusive relationship that they don't exactly know they're in, and how do you keep them out? What if they go back? How do you keep them out for good?
Well, first, regardless of whether or not it's your parent or your child or a friend, the decision to leave and stay gone isn't yours. It's not yours. It's theirs. We want our loved one to get out of that relationship and to stay out and to be safe and to be healthy, but that decision's not ours, and that's one of the most difficult things for people to accept. Because let's just say you yell at them or whatever, and they're like, fine, I'll leave. And they might leave temporarily. But if they weren't ready, they're going back. If they weren't ready, they're going to go back. They're going to start second guessing. Well, it's not that bad. Honeymoon phase kicks in. So whether or not it's your parent or anyone, first I want you to understand that decision is not yours, and it's a big pill to swallow. Secondly, if they don't even know that they're in an abusive relationship, like I wouldn't give them a book and say, listen, does this look familiar? Like that doesn't usually work, because then people kind of feel like they're under attack or you're judging them or whatever the case may be. Something that was really subtle. I knew I was in an abusive relationship because I'd seen it, but something that's really subtle a friend of mine did with her daughter. She took her to see, what movie was that? Cheese and Crackers. Was it Enough? Oh, that's my granddaddy. Y'all heard me say cheese and crackers. That's what he would say to us to keep from swearing at us. Was it Enough with Jennifer? What is something? She took her daughter to see a movie, and she was like, let's go out to dinner and let's talk about the movie and how you like. She kept it really light, unsuspecting, and then it just opened up a conversation of, didn't Paul say that to you once? Remember you told me that? And it wasn't like, this is you. It wasn't that. It was very light. She was just basically trying to get her to realize it on her own. So if there's a movie you can take them to see, rent a DVD, if there's a video you saw, if there's a survey, you can even ask them for help because they love you too. It's like, you know what? I met this guy and he said this to me, the stuff that you've heard them say to the victim. What do you think about that? Because sometimes people have all the advice in the world for other people, but when it comes to themselves, they're totally blinded by it. That's just a couple of things I think that you can do. But please note that decision's not yours. We'd like to think it is, but it's not.
I think I see this most when there's generational domestic violence. Various times in support groups, probably the saddest moments I've seen is when an individual says, you know, I think I dated a nice person once. They took me out to eat and they did all these things. You know, they didn't have to have sex with me the first time and all of these things. And then they say, but I broke up with him because it didn't feel comfortable. It was weird. So sometimes domestic abuse can end up so normalized to individuals if there's generational domestic abuse, if they've seen their families abused, their parents, their sisters, grandparents, that they truly don't recognize it and it feels normal, so they don't recognize it as abuse. I have to brag on our prevention program at this point. Our prevention program goes into the middle schools and the high schools, and they do some programming also with youth serving organizations. And there have been several times that have really touched my heart because there'll be a teenager that brings their mother in because they've gone through the Building Healthy Relationships program and they've gone home and they've pointed out to their mom and talked to their mom. And in the cases I've seen, it's the mom, and explained to them, you know, about their, you know, things aren't right and there's help. And then they come in together with the kid and the mom to get help. So I think, like you said, kind of softly sharing with them the information is so valuable.
And if you have the opportunity to stay connected to that person, if you're able to talk to them once a week or every other week or once a month, please keep trying to do that and make yourself available for those moments, because we know that isolation is a key to these types of relationships, right? So maybe at some point, that person will be willing to say something like, I'm ready to go, or whatever it is, and they will have somebody on their side. And that's super important.
We're running a little low on time, so I want to combine these together. How do you address or handle the recurring emotions or thoughts of surviving domestic violence and not let it interfere with your present life? What has helped you to heal from those experiences to get you to a place where telling your story doesn't bring back such raw emotions?
So first of all, telling your story, if it brings back raw emotions, so be it. You have to keep doing it and keep doing it. I've been doing this 21 years. And every now and then it still hits me. It still hits me. It never goes away. The way you deal with it may start to change. So if you're looking for it to never resurface again, that's not likely to happen. So if you're going to share your story, first of all, that's very important, is sharing your story. Talking about it helps a lot, whether it's a professional or someone you feel emotionally safe with. Stop avoiding it. I can't stress that enough. Stop avoiding it, because it's going to manifest in other ways in your life that's going to be dysfunctional. Don't run from it. If you are hurt, don't run from it. You go toe to toe with it. That's the only way it's going to not control other aspects of your life. And then you said something that I thought was really fantastic. When you have those negative thoughts and you challenge it in that moment. So a thought comes into mind. Do you ask yourself, is this because of the abuse, or is this because this is genuinely not good for me? You can start asking yourself those questions. Don't look for that emotional rawness and tears and everything to permanently go away, because it doesn't. You just get better at dealing with it. You get better at talking about it, and you become an advocate for others.
I think for me, I spent so many years feeling shame of who I was and what I was because of what I had been told and what I believed about myself. And I think now I've gotten to a point that I can own my life. This is my life, and it's okay. It wasn't great, but you know what? It's the only life I have, and I'll own it, and it's who I am. And like you said, it brings you to who you are today if those experiences hadn't existed. I think that learning to recognize how it impacts you, I mean, I know my abuse will always impact me in certain ways. I know what those are. And I've also learned how to maneuver through life while nurturing those parts of me that are hurt.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned when I talked a little bit, I still have some of those responses to like loud sounds and somebody being behind me or somebody coming up and touching me when I didn't expect them to. And I've started to learn more about how, well, one, I can prevent that from happening in the first place. Like, let's just be honest. Like, sometimes if I have the choice to sit with my back to the wall, I'm going to sit with my back to the wall. Basics, right? Until you can start identifying those more quickly. But now I have really learned like what it feels like to get really tense, and in that moment, and I get a lot of anxiety in my stomach. You know, I have the physiological symptoms that go along with that, and I'm starting to learn that. And in that moment, I can start being like, whoa. Right? What is that? What started that? How can I deal with that in the moment? It's just people do all kinds of things, right? They could go for a run, they exercise, they journal, or whatever it is that you need to do. Just you don't have to be professional to do those things, right? So just having something. So in the moment when you're feeling panic or whatever it is you're feeling, you can do that until you're ready to sit down and think, what just happened here, and try to figure that out.
Our final question, how do you know you're ready to start a relationship?
How do you know you're ready? Okay, so that bullet list that I gave you of what it actually looks like, ask yourself if that's something that you can actually offer. Ask yourself what you want from a relationship, but also ask yourself what you have to offer a relationship. If you can't come up with anything, it's not time. If you can't come up with anything you have to offer another person, it's not time to get into a relationship. Another sign that you are ready for a relationship is that the idea of being in a relationship to you doesn't give you anxiety anymore. You kind of welcome it. And you're not in a hurry for it. You're like, you know what? If it happens, okay, I'm good with that. There's not this whole like, oh my God, what if they're a jerk? It's just like, you know what? I'm a better person now. I'm ready to share my most authentic self with another person who's also whole. That's a really good sign that you're ready for a healthy relationship.
Yeah, I think if you are okay being by yourself, then you're okay to be in a relationship. I think it's really important to remember that a relationship is not going to repair or fix the past hurts. And sometimes people will jump into a relationship because they see it as a better relationship and that's going to help heal. But really, I think you have to kind of make sure you're okay by yourself first before you add somebody to the equation.
Yep.
Yeah, nothing down there. That's great. What? Yeah.
We did receive a comment, too, from our audience. Every woman that presented themselves on stage did amazing, and they definitely did. If we could please give all of our panelists another hand.